Alright, NBA fans, so even though we've had some absolute hood classic all-time performances in these NBA playoffs over the past couple of days, the already eliminated NBA teams are somehow keeping that same NBA drama energy over that same period of time. We've been getting absolute bombshell articles from The Athletic, seeming like on a daily basis at this point. And yeah, I mean, these are some pretty unprecedented times in the league that we have never seen before. So let's jump into it. There are currently two players that are 22 and under on their rookie deals who are currently just in an absolute drama situation with some of these reports that have been coming out recently. We're going to start with Zion and the Pelicans. So for a quick timeline rebuffer, we saw Stan Van Gundy get fired after his 1 year in New Orleans. I never quite understood the signing in the first place. He didn't seem like a fit for that roster at all, just the way he plays, his play style didn't really match the players that he had and their best abilities. So I never understood the signing, but good riddance. Thankfully, the Pelicans finally got something right. Then today we get news via The Athletic that the head coaching search isn't even the worst of the Pelicans' issues right now, as apparently Zion's family have reached out and said that they are unhappy with the current situation around Zion in New Orleans. And while I think everyone has enjoyed getting their memes off, all about everyone saying how, oh, if I had Eric Bledsoe chucking up bricks and Steven Adams clogging the paint for 30 minutes each night, that I'd be upset too. And, those are funny at all, they make sense, they get a good chuckle out of everyone, but I think this is definitely more of a front office issue. Even just looking back across the past 15 years or so, we saw both CP3 and Anthony Davis leave New Orleans on not so great terms after their initial contracts. CP3 was on the trading block at the end of his tenure in New Orleans, and then we saw Anthony Davis and his whole situation with the That's All Folks t-shirt and everything that happened there, leading to him being sent over to the Lakers. Even earlier this season, we got word from JJ Redick that via his podcast, I'm pretty sure it was, he claimed that the Pelicans front office was dishonest after he was traded to Dallas late in the season at the deadline. And I feel like this one kind of got swept under the rug a little bit and deserved a little bit more attention. And, all of these cases with all these players, I think it makes you think about what's truly happening out there in New Orleans. But getting back to that roster, the front office has done an absolute horrid job at surrounding Zion with compliments and just talented guys in general. I just don't know how you draft a generational talent like Zion, one of the most efficient and most effective drivers that we've already seen in NBA history. I know he's only 2 years in, but I'm already pretty much sold on that fact. But then you take that and you just surround him with zero shooting in the starting lineup or the roster in total. Looking over this past season, there were only 3 players on the entire Pelicans roster that shot over 38% from 3 on the season. One of those was Brandon Ingram, who shot exactly 38%. The second one was Wenyen Gabriel, who eclipsed 40% but averaged 11 minutes across 21 games on the season. And then the third player was Jackson Hayes, yes, their second-year center who has no business being out on the three-point line right now, shot 6 of 14 from 3 on the season, but by no means should count as a reliable three-point shooter. And as for the big trade they made last offseason, I don't blame them for taking on the Eric Bledsoe contract. That just simply helped get the trade done to ship out Jrue Holiday, and they got 4 first-round picks as a result of that, so we'll have to at least wait and see what they do with those picks. And essentially they just took on Eric Bledsoe's contract because it was a bad contract, and they were a team that could take on money. The Steven Adams portion of that trade, on the other hand, had me absolutely just irritated. The Pelicans literally had one job last offseason to pair Zion Williamson with a center that could space the floor and shoot threes. I don't care if he's a good defender, I don't care if he was a bad defender, just someone that could give the paint freely up to Zion and be a catch and shoot scoring threat. Instead, they go out of their way and include Steven Adams as an afterthought in that same Jrue Holiday Eric Bledsoe trade. And not only that, they trade for him and then they extend him for another 2 years. And these are the types of decisions I'm talking about that make me question why organizations even deserve these generational talents in the first place. Simply put, if Zion does end up leaving New Orleans at some point over the next few years, I will not hesitate to put a majority of the blame on the Pelicans front office and organization before blaming Zion himself. Then switching over to Luka and Dallas, they are in the midst of one of the craziest power struggles that we have seen in league history. Their short timeline starts with them up 2-0 in the first round of this year's playoffs against the LA Clippers. They had a double-digit lead in Game 3, but as we all know, ended up losing in 7 games to Los Angeles, and that basically was the last straw that really kicked off these next few events. After that, The Athletic dropped a huge article of detailing a rift between Luka Doncic and the front office, just surrounding their relationships and the approaching supermax that Luka is currently up for this current summer and off season. But to me, it seemed like that report spearheaded someone named Bob Voulgaris in the front office as the main guy causing a lot of attention. I've heard a lot of sources name him as a sort of shadow GM in that front office. We'll get more on Voulgaris later. I'll also interject now, I just recently finished up listening to the early parts of the Tim McMahon and Zach Lowe Post podcast talking about this whole situation just to make sure I got all my facts right, so we move. Next, we see Mark Cuban call cap on the initial Athletic report, and then later we see that 20-plus year GM Donnie Nelson, I'm still not even quite sure what the official wording was on this, but he parts ways from the Mavericks. I've heard some people say he got fired, I've heard some people say he resigned. Either way, those two parties have separated. And this is someone who played a very important role in that 2011 championship, so to see him just up and leave so abruptly is definitely a cause for concern. But apparently for a long time now, both him and Mark Cuban have had an intense power struggle that apparently at this point, Donnie Nelson has realized that he has lost said power struggle, and that led to him eventually leaving the team. And the big point to come from this is that one of Donnie Nelson's specialties was international scouting, and if you can see where I'm going with this, he was very big in bringing Luka to Dallas. He was also big in getting Dirk Nowitzki to Dallas as well, and everything that happened with him. But essentially, Nelson and Luka have had a relationship since Luka was a young kid, so as you can imagine, him being fired definitely ticked off Luka, which has definitely caused a lot of the issues and tension that is currently presiding. And then finally today, we got news that Rick Carlisle is out as the head coach in Dallas after a very long run where he also was a part of that 2011 championship team. And this also comes after Mark Cuban's statement regarding their loss to the Clippers in the first round, that you don't fire a coach just to fire a coach. And I guess Mark Cuban doesn't have to worry about firing a coach because Carlisle says that it was his own decision to leave the team. And the interesting part of this fact is that apparently Luka had issues with Carlisle. They butted heads during many games, even openly. There have been many reports about some of the specific words that have been said during the games. And yeah. And then one last key thing I wanted to mention from Tim McMahon on the Low Post podcast, he said that much like how Jerry Jones is the final decision maker for the Dallas Cowboys, Mark Cuban has a very similar role in the Mavericks organization. And I say that because where we stand at now, we have Mark Cuban, who makes the final decisions. We have Bob Voulgaris, who I mentioned earlier, in that shadow GM role, who's basically telling Mark Cuban what to do when it comes to basketball-related things. We have Donnie Nelson, friend of Luka Doncic, fired. We have Rick Carlisle, not friend of Luka Doncic, gone from the team. And I'm not quite sure where the Mavericks go from here. And maybe I'm just being ignorant, but I really just don't understand how we have now seen two teams in recent time mess up having a generation talent gifted to them so bad. And I know there will be plenty of people who are pushing the small market narrative who say that these teams deserve another chance. They finally have talent on their team, and this is a time where they could finally, grow like we saw the Golden State Warriors do with Steph Curry and all those guys. And I'm just here to say, I don't know why they should be given a chance since they've done such a terrible job so far. The current state of the NBA has just simply changed. Players want to go play with other good players. They don't care where they have to play. I mean, they care a little bit. They don't really want to go to Minnesota or Toronto. No offense to those cities, but they'd rather play in a nice environment. They want to have a fun experience. They want to play with their friends. They want to play in good environments where there's no toxicity. I know the recent Nets situation is a rare one that we probably will not see for some time, but even just looking at them as an example, they built up a great culture with Kenny Atkinson and D'Angelo Russell and all those young guys. They made a first round playoff exit and everyone was in high spirits. Then that summer they have the cap space, they go out, They find a duo in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant who are looking to team up and want a situation that's good and nice and that they can play in together. They say, oh, Brooklyn's nice, they have cap space, let's go there. And bam, just like that, the Nets are title contenders yet again. So I find it really hard to believe that these organizations should be left off the hook for being gifted generational talents and then just somehow finding the ways to mess it up so bad that you cause rifts amongst your front office, amongst your players, amongst your coaching staffs, and you eventually get to the point where it's just not a good environment, players don't want to play there, and you could have avoided all this by just avoiding bad decisions. You don't have to make good decisions. You can make subpar decisions, but you just have to avoid the bad ones. And that's not to say that if you maybe sign a player and it doesn't work out, that that's the end of the world. But when you restrict your cap space and go out and sign unproven stars to max contracts, Porzingis, I just feel like if you are an organization and you end up with a Luka or a Zion like talent on your team, you simply keep them happy, don't make any risky decisions involving your cap space, let that player grow out and develop, and obviously while your team and fans will probably push for you to win right away, I think it'd be a better decision and a more cost-effective decision to simply let that player grow and make relationships, and eventually other star players who are in bad situations will want to team up with them, and just like that, you have players that want to play for your team because you have a star player that attracts talent, and then you have other role players who see you as a winning team and want to go play for you because you have the best chance at a ring. And at the end of the day, just don't make stupid decisions. But to wrap up this video, one thing that I 100% know for sure will be happening this offseason is that Luka will be getting his bag. He'll be getting what he has deserved at this point in his career, and that's all I'm really worried about at this point. And even if it's not Dallas that ends up paying him for some strange reason, there will be some team that will pay Luka Doncic to play basketball in the year 2022.